In the very early morning of June 6th, news came that the dam at the Kahkovka hydroelectric power plant was destroyed. Hours later, video appeared showing that a large portion of it had indeed been damaged. This video will try to explore several points. How was the dam damaged? Who stands to profit from it? And how might the events stemming from the damage shape the Ukrainian offensive and the war in Ukraine? The dam itself is the last of the 6 dams over the Dnipro reservoir system. It sits at the mouth of the Kakhovka reservoir, one of the largest water accumulation reservoirs in Ukraine. The dam and its bridge connect the towns of Nova Kakhovka on the Russian-held side and Kozatske on the Ukrainian-held side. So let's go into what happened. So far, Ukrainian officials said Russia has destroyed the dam, likely using explosive charges set on the dam itself. From the Russian side, there were multiple claims. Initially, local officials said the dam was not damaged at all. Then the mayor of Nova Kakhovka said it was Ukrainian artillery shelling that damaged the dam. The Russian news agency TASS simply reported the dam collapsed due to damage it withstood. It's important to show just how extensive the damage is. This video shows that 2 separate locations at the dam suffered damage. A part of the building over the south part of the dam is gone. That stretch of the dam alone is over 50 meters long. Though the damage there doesn't seem to go very deep. The second, much bigger section of the dam that is missing is separate, easily over 100 meters long. Mind you, the entire dam is some 600 meters long. Crucially, it's evident that damage done there goes deeper, as there's a considerable volume of water flowing through the hole in the dam. The dam itself is 30 meters tall, with most of that height being underwater. Kakhovka reservoir is up to 26 meters deep, though most of it is 13 meters deep during an average year. Now, it's not known where the bottom edge of the hole is. It matters a lot whether it's just a few meters under the initial water levels or it goes 10 meters down. A Russian official said the water levels at the town of Nova Kakhovka, just downstream from the dam, rose by 11 meters within 10 or so hours after the blast. Ukrainian officials said the water within the reservoir upstream from the dam is dropping by 15 centimeters each hour. By the time this video gets released, there may be further news, perhaps mentioning the water levels in the reservoir stopped dropping. That will show how deep the damage on the dam goes. And it may also help decipher the motivation of each side, who might stand to profit more from damaging the dam. Because right now, just judging the events itself, that's not very conclusive. It's apparent artillery couldn't have done it alone. For this kind of destruction, planted explosives are by far the most likely cause. Ukraine said back in 2022 that Russia mined the dam, possibly to protect itself from a Ukrainian offensive at Kherson, if that was to go further and cross the Dnieper River. At the same time, a Washington Post article from December 2022 cites Ukrainian General Kovalchuk, who led the Ukrainian Kherson offensive, who said Ukraine tested hitting a floodgate at the Kakhovka dam, enough to make a hole to raise the water levels downstream a little. Ultimately, Ukraine did not proceed with striking the dam extensively, but the idea was there. Back then, Russia held both sides of the dam, so approaching it and planting explosive was not possible. Ukraine considered using guided missiles from HIMARS launchers. This June attack was not done by such a rocket. Also, the other side of the dam is now held by Ukraine. The facility portion of the dam is closer to the Russian side, and there's a land bridge at the Ukrainian side, where it is harder to keep an approaching demolition team hidden. So if Ukraine set up demolition charges, that would have most likely been done by using divers and submersibles. Russia most likely had explosives planted from before. It simply makes no sense for Russia not to plant explosives. As it's trying to prevent Ukraine from going over Dnieper, it's in Russian interest to mine all possible river crossings. Russia also had more time to set up monitoring of underwater approaches, and as we said, the dam facilities are somewhat closer to the Russian side. So in terms of who had it harder to pull off a demolition team successfully, Russia wins. It would be much easier for it to damage the dam. But as we said, the really important thing here is who might profit from the damage, and how might it shape the war. Damage to the dam means that the Dnieper River south of the dam will flood the surroundings. That has already happened. If the damage to the dam goes many meters below the starting water levels, there might be considerable area flooded south of the dam. But it won't be the same on both banks of the river. This area is quite low, a few meters to several meters high at most, and will mostly be flooded. Russia is currently holding the front south of the dam along these lines, so some of the current Russian positions will be swept away by the flooding. Some Ukrainian positions will also be swept away, but right now, due to Ukrainian offensive, it's Ukraine who has a greater incentive to attack. If Ukraine wants to push over that part of Dnieper, it might make sense for Russia to flood the area in the middle of Ukrainian crossing attempt. We will see if there will be reports of Ukraine's troops that have been trying to cross the Dnieper there in numbers. If only defensive positions wanted to be softened up, then Ukraine has a greater incentive to cause the flooding. Sure, it would also mean no crossing can be done during the flooding, but as the waters subside, the defensive positions, trenches and so on would be in worse shape, so Ukraine might have more incentive there. But there's also the damage to broader surroundings to be considered. Northern bank of Dnieper has higher grounds. Generally very close to the marshes, the northern bank is at least 15 meters high. Most of Kherson is higher up, with areas close to the river banks being at 20 or more meters. It's very unlikely the flooding will ever, even for a short time, reach such high grounds. This part of Kherson is low and might be flooded, however. Looking at the southern Russian-held bank, the situation is somewhat different. The flooding might go deeper south, with the line showing roughly 8-meter ground height. The very large area towards the mouth of the river is much lower, at just a few meters. For a short time, it might be flooded, and there are considerable Russian fortifications built there. Fortifications can be rebuilt, but if Ukraine sees the right moment right as the flooding subsides, it might gain an upper hand. Still, the gains to be had south of the dam might be eclipsed with gains to be had north of it. The Kahkovka reservoir runs from the damaged dam all the way to the city of Zaporizhia. It's roughly 210 kilometers long and several to a dozen kilometers wide. That means that in theory, if one removes most water from the reservoir, that huge water obstacle, which favors whoever is defending, will be made smaller. The width of the remaining river will also drop, likely to similar width seen near the city of Kherson. A river hundreds of meters wide would still be hard to cross, but easier than one several kilometers wide. But most importantly, it would mean Russia would have to find extra manpower, or it would have to redistribute its existing manpower to guard that southern Dnieper bank, alongside all of those 210 extra kilometers. Right now, Russia can afford to deploy fairly few troops from Zaporizhia to the mouth of Dnieper River, especially alongside the reservoir. It had to protect the last 100 kilometers from the dam to the end of Dnieper a bit better. In the future, it may have to apply the same manpower to the entire 300-kilometer riverfront. But as we said, we will really see where the reservoir levels will stop at. That will give us a better idea of the damage to the dam, and it will show better whether the future front line alongside Dnieper will impact the Ukraine's offensive more or less. But what about damage to Crimea and Energodar nuclear power plant? The latter is located here on the southern bank of the reservoir. It uses the reservoir to cool its reactors. While the reactors itself are not working, there is still nuclear fuel stored that needs to be cooled. If there's not enough water, there might be a radiation incident. The power plant has its own water reservoir, which might provide it with enough cooling for a few months, but not more than that. If Ukraine's goal was to deprive the Russian side of electricity, that doesn't make sense, as reactors were shut down over half a year ago. However, both sides will feel the effects of radiation if the nuclear fuel melts down. So it's in no one's direct interest to do it. Indirectly, however, it might be in Russian interest to normalize nuclear incidents. If it can accuse Ukraine of causing a nuclear incident, Russia might feel more justified and safer at using its nuclear arsenal at a certain point. So in that regard, Ukraine has even less of an incentive to go after the power plant in this indirect way through draining the reservoir. On the other hand, there's the issue of water supply in Crimea. Right at the end of the Kakhovka reservoir, a large canal starts which diverts water towards Crimea. That canal used to bring most of the fresh water to Crimea, allegedly up to 85% of the water. That was before 2014. After Russia took Crimea, Ukraine shut down the canal, leaving Crimea without most water. It was only in 2022, after Russia took control of the entire canal, that Crimea once again got all that water. So a casual conclusion might be that it's not in Russia's interest to harm the reservoir water levels, as Crimea will be left without much of its water. But one has to keep in mind the following. From 2014 to 2022, water usage in Crimea has restructured. Officially, population of Crimea increased by 10% in those years. Unofficially, however, Ukraine says over 500,000 Russians moved to Crimea due to Russian incentives. That would increase the population by over 20%. So actually getting enough drinking water was, even in those dry years, achievable. The price paid for that was in agriculture. While pre-2014 Crimea was an agriculture hub, that ceased to be the case. From 2014 to 2017, the area of cultivated land decreased by 90%. Let's remember, over 70% of canal water was used for agriculture. So to sum it up, canal is not that crucial to Crimea, as Crimea had survived for 8 years without it. Potentially hundreds of thousands of Russians have left Crimea since 2022, making water consumption a bit less of an issue. So Ukraine might not have that much to gain from impacting the canal water levels, and Russia would not have that much to lose from denying itself the canal water levels. Days to come will show the true extent of the damage and how the war might be shaped. But for now, Russian side will definitely feel more pressure at the southern Kherson front for a while, as Ukraine's offensive seems to be starting, with many probing attacks in the south, from Zaporizhia to Donbass. Unless there's been an accidental detonation of Russian explosives on the dam, one fact remains: damage to the dam was not done on a whim. It's too big of a deal for just a casual attack. It's a sign of greater changes to come. The conflict just escalated yet again, and fighting is set to broaden from just around Donbass to a much wider front in the south, possibly encompassing the entire stretch from Donbass to the mouth of Dnieper. And remember, Binkov may talk about war, but only real peace can bring us all together.